Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Benchwarmer Sports podcast. I'm Raffi here with Davian and Theodore. It's been a while since Lucas has been on the pod, but don't worry, he will be back soon. Fortunately, couldn't join us today, but it's all good. I'm getting my revenge for when he was calling me out when I was out for the week. Boys, how are we doing today? Obviously, NFL draft is next week. We got some big news going on in the world of college basketball. But yeah, let's just get right to it. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great. Excited to talk some sports as always.
I'm doing great. I watched the Jason Tatum game-winning layup on the beaches of Aruba, so that was pretty nice. But yeah, no, I'm excited. I actually forgot about the NFL draft. I know we'll be covering that later today, but there's been no hype leading up to it, really.
Absolutely. I thought it was tomorrow, and I was like, it's really quiet for the NFL draft. And then, of course, I just got hit with it's actually the week after, which is completely fine because the viewers who are watching, you guys will see this video a few days before the draft. So that works out much nicer than hearing our draft takes a day or two after the NFL draft happens. So let's just hop right in. And there's some stuff I want to talk about. We had the schedule, the pre-show meeting. But I actually want to throw it over to you, Theodore, because you were at the opening weekend of the USFL. And I just want to, you obviously had some great experiences if you want to touch on that. But just overall, what was the kind of vibe there? Obviously, some of the games on Sunday were, but partially because it was Easter Sunday in all likelihood. It was not too many fans, but you were there for the whole weekend. Your thoughts?
All right, let me say I am very impressed with the with the USFL. As anyone who saw the TikToks I put out will know. I thought they were fun games. For anyone who did not catch what I said there, it's fun football. Like at the end of the day, you can say whatever you want about the quality of competition, the quality of the players out there. I personally was impressed. I was thoroughly entertained throughout. One thing that was interesting, I was actually at the game with a former college player, and small school, but Pat has a lot of experience. He was on the D line at a small college, and he said flat out, these USFL teams, the professionalism of these squads, completely outclass elite college teams like Alabama, Ohio State. He believes that any USFL team would run through the Power 5 squads, and listening to his reasoning, I kind of agree with him. I think the USFL is a very high-level league and a league that is set up for success. Just to wrap it up, the atmosphere was electric for that first game. It's in Birmingham, as most of you know by now, due to both the pandemic, like it's hard to plan a league during a pandemic, so they just set it as a safety blanket. But those Birmingham fans are hyped for their Stallions. Atmosphere was electric. They were all into it. The other games, not so much, but I think this league will succeed.
I think once the teams go to their respective cities, I think that'll draw in more fans and more of a hype around them. Obviously,
Yeah.
as in like the Birmingham, the first game, a lot of people were there. You posted a video. If you just want to hear our unfiltered sports takes, Benchwarmer_sports on TikTok. A little shout out there. Throw that out there, little promo. But yeah, you kind of hit on the head. That first game looked really cool from your videos and from what you were saying. And obviously, once again, as I mentioned, Sunday was pretty quiet, but there is a valid reason why that occurred. I'm very interested to see how long this runs. Obviously, the XFL, I believe it was, before all of the chaos happened, it was doing pretty solid. And then it started, once COVID hit, it just couldn't really succeed. So I'm currently still a little pessimistic, but if the USFL succeeds and becomes something really nice, becomes a farm system, becomes something bigger, I'm more than happy to eat my words on that. Davian, did you have any thoughts on the USFL before we change subject?
I was pretty happy with. I mean, first off, the game, like the actual performance of the players, I was pretty happy with. I mean, I thought it'd be really kind of boring and kind of remind me of like preseason games where there was nothing really exciting. It was just rookies, just going at it. I was pretty impressed by the play from the players. Um, and then I guess I would also comment with I would also make a comment that by them starting in Birmingham with their first year, they're saving a lot of money. You're saving on travel costs, everything. This could be a profitable year for the USFL, which is something that the other leagues never really had to never really did. It wasn't the American Football League, right, a few years ago, the one which Young Wei Koo, Young Yeah, Young Wake who came out of.
Yeah. Is that or the XFL? But yes.
Yeah, so I mean that league, like, it started off well, but they just went bankrupt at the end. And I think that's something that the USFL has realized that they can really avoid, and I think they can really make a mark on this market of like spring football before the XFL comes in.
I think the big key though, and I've seen this in the past with expansion teams, for example, because we don't really get too many new like sports leagues, especially in the US, that are as big of a deal as the USFL, where if a team in like their first year, they might get a ton of fans. There's going to be a ton of hype, but the next few years that could teeter depending on the success of the league. So the USFL kind of just starts to stagnate, or they're not getting like high end enough talent to have like a good like thing to show to the general public, being the games. Then I could see it falling off. But once again, I'd love to eat my words on this, and I hope it's very successful. One of the things that I really like before we move on is the fact that you kind of mentioned, Davian, that's not really like a preseason game, but it's also just the fact too that this is kind of the last chance. No, it is the last chance for a lot of these players. Theodore, I know you had the amazing opportunity to talk to Paxton Lynch's dad for a little bit, I believe. Yeah. And from talks and stuff you just see around just Twitter, social media, these players are playing because they love football. They're barely getting paid. I don't know how much they're getting paid, but they're not getting paid like NFL players.
$45,000 a year.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, it's a respective salary, but these players are playing because they love the game and they want another try. A lot of these guys are from the CFL or from other places, and they're like, you know what, I want a chance. Shea Patterson, for example, a guy who was pretty solid in Michigan, didn't get drafted to an NFL team. He's still really young. If he has a really good year, there's potential. And I love those stories where a player does not get drafted and all of a sudden they're like, you know what, I'm going to take a few years in the USFL, prove my worth, and then get that NFL contract. So that's something that I really like and is really making me want to watch the USFL. But let's just hop into the next breaking news, as I believe it was half an hour ago from when we were recording this on Wednesday at 8 Eastern-ish. Jay Wright, the Villanova head coach, who went 520 and 197 in 21 seasons, has officially announced his retirement, or not officially announced, but he's planning on having a team meeting, which is highly anticipated. And essentially, we're extremely confident, 98% sure, that he will be retiring at the conclusion. So when you're watching this video, he will be retired, and that will be set in stone. And this was a little shocking. He's 60 years old. I think he still had a few more years. And it's we've kind of shifted to a different era of college basketball. Obviously, Roy Williams, I believe a year ago around this time, announced his retirement from North Carolina. Coach K obviously had his huge tour. They got spoiled twice by UNC, which was hilarious. And now Jay Wright's also leaving. So, Theodore, I know you know a little bit about Kyle Neptune, so your thoughts on the replacement, and then we'll do a little discussion on what the future outlook for Villanova is.
Well, first of all, Raffi, if this news explodes in our faces and he does not retire, we're setting up for an epic Castellanos apology next show.
Is that a bad thing, though?
I think it looks like he is retiring. But I got to be excited for the future of Villanova. Kyle Neptune, in his year at Fordham, proved to be an exceptional coach. Maybe at some point in the offseason over the summer, I'll give you guys a whole podcast on all the Fordham basketball information you never wanted to know. I've followed this team way too long. You know, used to go to games younger, like season tickets. It was pitiful watching this team every year. They win like 7 games a season. They haven't made an NIT since 1992, I believe. And this is like a rich New York City school that should be dominating, and they can't. Kyle Neptune comes in year 1, goes 500, which is no small task at this school. So he just, everything I've seen about him, the players love him. He was even getting a lot of recruits this offseason, which I'm sure is completely out the window with the way guys have been decommitting lately. But he looks like a great coach, and I'm sure that Villanova will just keep rolling along like they have been.
Absolutely. It's going to be very similar to UNC, I imagine, and also how I expect Duke to be next year. I, fortunately, somewhat am connected to John Shire, the new head coach of Duke. I have a friend who is close family friends. John Shire is from my went to my high school, so there are some connections there. It's not like I can call him up and be like, Mr. Shire, can you come on the podcast? But it's definitely cool to see someone from your respective area make it to such a high ceiling, high area, high standing in society as the Duke men's basketball head coach. But David, any thoughts before we continue on?
I mean, look, I'm not a big college basketball fan, but I will say this from what I've
Rutgers is going to
seen.
beat them regardless. It did not matter.
Oh man. Okay, so I'll just say this really. I think Villanova will keep rolling, as Theodore said. I think this is a really good coaching replacement. I'm not big. I wasn't really focusing on Fordham basketball, but I looked up the new replacement. I saw he has a solid record. When you're getting recruits already to like a school that isn't really usually getting recruits, that already means something. For Villanova, it doesn't really matter who the coach is. If it's Neptune or if it's the guy down the street, they still have the legacy of their program, and I think that they'll continue to get some of the top recruits in the nation, and they'll be able to continue rolling like UNC was this year.
Once again, won national championships in 2016 and 2018, and obviously went to the Final Four this past year. So certainly Villanova will continue to keep rolling, even with Colin Giuseppe and Jay Wright moving on. But yeah, we'll see. Providence is pretty young. I think they're up and coming, and I think they'll be them and Villanova. It's going to be a great fight next year for who's going to take the Big East crown. Let's hop into our final little housekeeping story, and that is earlier today, as we record once again on Wednesday evening, Deebo Samuel has requested a trade out of San Francisco. I understand that he wants money, but if I'm the 49ers, from the 49ers perspective, I completely understand why they don't want to pay him this money. I think that he's really good, but the way he got utilized was in part due to all the injuries they had. Obviously, Moser was injured, and basically all their running backs. I think they had like 4 running backs hurt at one point. So it kind of thrusted Samuel into that role. He did really well. He fits, but I capitalize on his value right now with just how much you can potentially get from him. I think you can at least get a second-round pick, or if a team is really desperate for a wide receiver, Green Bay, maybe you even throw a first-round pick. I'm not sure. Your guys' thoughts on Deebo Samuel, where he might go. Do you keep him, or would you trade him?
First of all, I think you're really undercounting this guy's value. I mean, he's, I want to say 25 years old, maybe going to be 26 next year, and he just put up 1,400 receiving yards. I think to a contending team, or even a team like the Chiefs, they're obviously the one that jumps out because they have those extra picks. I can easily see a team throwing out 2 first-round picks for him if we're being real. But I think his value is high, and I agree it makes sense to trade for him. However, there was one thing that kind of went a little under the radar in this whole story. Earlier today, like as the trade rumors are being announced, he went out and said, he didn't want to be used as a running back anymore. He just wants to be strictly a receiver. Which, if you're Deebo Samuel, who's in this hybrid role and like viewed as such like a good utility, like it makes no sense to say that. I feel like you're just
if anything, that increases your value if you're saying, okay, I do have that flexibility. But yeah, continue.
But yeah, regardless, I don't know why he went and said that, but even if he's just a wide receiver, he's a great player. I think we've all seen that. I think we saw just everything that he did for the 49ers in the playoff run. And I think he really is the kind of guy who can either take like a mid-level team to the next level, or if it's a team like Green Bay, really elevate them to finally break through. So I think it absolutely makes sense for someone to trade them. If I'm San Francisco, I think you really got to try to get this guy fully on board, especially because you may be saving some money in moving on from Jimmy Garoppolo, so maybe you'll have some more cash to shell out for him. I'd try to make amends, but it doesn't look likely right now.
See, I understand why it makes sense and why a lot of people are like valuing him. I understand why I appear to be undervaluing him. What I kind of used as my estimator of how much money are you worth, how many years, all that kind of stuff with contracts, is I like to see at least 2 years. 2 years
Okay.
of playing really well. If Deebo Samuel puts up another year like this, wherever he's at, if he puts up 1,400 yards around 10 touchdowns, he has another great season like he did last season, then I'm absolutely on the Deebo Samuel train Pay the man. He's a really good player. But with only one season of concrete, this guy is really good, you can make the argument, oh, he's still young. He's only 26. There's still potential. But in this really wide receiver deep draft, and we'll talk about the NFL draft right after this, maybe a team would rather just take a younger guy first. That's why if the 49ers can get a first-round pick for Deebo Samuel, I think you take that because you can take a guy like Chris Olave, who's very similar, and you save a bunch of money, and you get a cost-controlled player for 4 or 5 years. Davian, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a Patriots fan. So what is the Patriots' number one need? It's really wide receiver. I know we're going to get into this more when we start really talking about the draft. I think that Deebo Samuel really does have a deep market. I mean, the Jets are dying for a new wide receiver. I think they will offer the whole entire bank for him. I think they will offer first-round pick for Deebo Samuel, especially considering that they have 2 first-round picks. I think from Deebo Samuel, this is a smart move. He sees that teams are in demand for him, and he can really, move on. And I'm not sure. I mean, Deebo Samuel is probably realizing that Trey Lance is going to be the QB that's throwing to him. And we don't know how good Trey Lance is. He played solid when he was starting, but nothing spectacular. If Deebo Samuel is really, like, I don't want to play with Trey Lance, that's it, I want to go, this is the best way to really formulate it instead of just walking out and creating a whole drama and locker room attention. I think that the moment that he said, I'm no, like yesterday, it was something like, I think it was yesterday or Monday, he came out saying, his team came out saying that we are no longer looking at signing a deal with the 49ers. I said, that's got to be a trade. I mean, there's no other reason why you would want to do that. Another thing that I've really noticed, have you guys seen this about Christian Kirk? That's what these players are using as like the base of why they want to the reason of why they want to get
Yeah,
paid
and
so
that's
much.
what I don't like because if you look at Christian Kirk's contract, there are outs at certain years. And just because he's getting paid $18 million per year, it's not $18 million per year. It's different how the salary is constructed. I do not have the contract pulled up right now, but I do know there's out years. I think it's a 3 or 4 year deal. There's an out at some point. A lot of it, some of it's guaranteed, but at the end of the day, I understand why wide receivers are using that. But I mean, I personally I see Deebo Samuel's point, but once again, and then we can get into the conversation. If the Eagles had all 3 of their first round picks still this year, and obviously we know they traded one of them away to New Orleans in the trade, I would have probably pinned Deebo Samuel to the Eagles. Absolutely, I would not be shocked if the Chiefs, with one of their picks, as I believe Theodore mentioned, make a trade for a guy like Deebo Samuel. Maybe the Titans if AJ Brown's not working out. I don't think the Jets. I mean, okay, it's a very Jets thing to do to trade the 10th overall pick for Deebo Samuel, and Deebo Samuel proceeds to pull a Le'Veon Bell and just play terrible and just walk himself right to no man's land. But I just don't think he's worth a top 10 pick or even a pick.
No.
I'd take him. I'd give a late round pick. Like if I'm a team like Kansas City, for example, or once again Philly still with 2 first round picks, you can make a good argument. If I'm one of those 2 teams, New England, as Davian mentioned, then okay, like I think that makes sense. Even Arizona potentially, although I think they need secondary and some help on defense a bit more. I think some teams could definitely give a first round pick, but I think we're in the territory where if the Jets had a late first round pick, definitely I think that's a viable option to trade for Deebo Samuel. But with the 10th and especially no chance with the 4th overall pick, I don't think the Jets would go out and get Deebo Samuel. Because once again, it's all about being cost controlled. The less money you're paying, the better. And that's why like you see a lot of running backs, why a lot of teams don't like to give running backs their second contract, because you'd rather just draft a running back that you have cost control for 4 years and a much lower amount than shelling $20 million for a running back who might have injury concerns or other stuff as well.
Yeah. And Raffi, let me jump in here because I honestly think that receivers are trending in that exact direction.
Oh, yeah.
Like, look at the Saints, for example. You guys remember, I want to say 2015, 2016, Brandon Cooks viewed as like, oh, this guy's an elite young receiver. Then all of a sudden it's Michael Thomas, and they're able to move on from Cooks. If you look at the best receivers in the league right now, or some of the guys who are viewed as the best receivers, you get guys like Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase coming in and dominating the league. Look at Juju a couple years ago, how good he was, and then he just disappeared. receivers are becoming more and more replaceable. Younger receivers are making more and more of an impact. And I honestly think that, like, if the 49ers are able to get even a mid-round pick, like anywhere, from the 16 to 20 range, that could they could probably land a very solid receiver that could replace a lot of Deebo's production.
Well, let's think about it kind of from an NFL draft perspective, but it's kind of like the main theme of what we're going to be doing with this final segment. I believe Jake, oh boy, this is going to be a long segment. Drake London, I think, is definitely going to go very early. That's who I think the Jets might take with one of their first, I think probably with the 10th overall pick. But you have guys like Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, both from Ohio State. Obviously, Jameson Williams is coming back very quickly from his injury. So we'll see what happens with him. Pickens as well. And even Treylon Burks. There's a ton of guys, wide receivers, that can go in that first round. And that's why I find the 49ers, I potentially look to trade Deebo Samuel for one of those picks and take one of those young wide receivers. But I think the wide receivers will certainly start to fall once the Jets start to take a wide receiver. If the Jets take a wide receiver at 4, things will get very interesting. I don't think the Falcons, being the resident Falcons fan, I don't think the Falcons go wide receiver. I really want them to go edge. I think Jermaine Johnson would be a really good pick out of FSU to really bolster your defensive line. Any team that's rebuilding like the Falcons are, it's so crucial to build in the trenches. I mean, look at what Detroit's kind of doing right now. They have some good offensive line pieces. They have T.J. Hawkinson, who you can classify also in the trenches. And then they're building out the defense. The Falcons need to build out their trenches first before they look for a quarterback. And I am perfectly okay with tanking next year for the sake of C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young being the quarterback for the future.
Now, Raffi, I actually wanted to get into this earlier, and then the moment kind of passed. But I think Detroit is probably one of the most realistic locations for Deebo Samuel. They've got the money to pay him. They have a lack of significant players. If they give up that 26th overall pick plus maybe a second rounder next year, because remember they have an LA first next year, so they're kind of loaded up there. I think it could make sense. I think the fact that they'll be adding, in all likelihood, an elite edge rusher, plus probably they're going O-line with their early second, which is number 34 this year, I believe. I think it could make sense to give Goff a very talented wide receiver to work with, because let's be real, Detroit is heading for contention at some point. Like, they're not going to sit back and go 4-13 next year. They're probably going to be in the 7-10, 8-9 range, where they continue to build up under this under the league right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Amon-Ra St. Brown also had a very good season going down the stretch. So you can pair him, and also you have DeAndre Swift and T.J. Hawkinson. You throw in Deebo Samuel, and that certainly makes that Detroit offense much better. And if Jared Goff then doesn't work out, kind of like the Daniel Jones treatment, how we're kind of seeing, if Jared Goff can't work with those weapons, then that's fine. You draft a new quarterback, you draft a young guy, and that quarterback's likely going to thrive, knock on wood, in a very good offense that they'd be going into with a plethora of weapons.
Yeah.
One thing I'm very intrigued about is when and where the quarterbacks start to fall and go. Because I think there's a lot of teams, and Davian's ready to go, so I'll throw it right over to him. There's a lot of teams I feel that need quarterbacks or could potentially take a quarterback. It's just a matter of when the first one goes. Davian, you perked up.
All right. Okay, so a lot of people are saying Kyle Pickett goes to the Panthers. I kind of doubt that. I mean, the pick number 6 is extremely high for Kyle Pickett. Like, yes, the guy is good, but I don't know if he's as good or can develop. He needs time to develop, right? I don't think he's a day one starter. And you have Sam Darnold reminds me of Kirk Cousins in a way. He's not the greatest, but if you surround him with the right pieces, I could see that.
Yeah, Christian McCaffrey, although he was injured, and
Injured.
and Robbie Anderson.
On the important point here,
and Dan Arnold, elite tight end. But
let's stop with the Cousins sake. Come on, guys. You look at the stats. Kirk Cousins is a baller. The man puts up incredible numbers. One of the most underrated guys, kind of like Derek Carr was for years. Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. You guys need to learn to accept.
No, I think he's
just surrounded with the right pieces.
No, I think he's above the average. I do not think the Vikings will win a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins, but I do think
like a Super Bowl no matter what they do.
I think, well, that's true.
Yeah.
But but I do think their defense is getting older, and it's clearly shown with the age, and that's kind of been hurting them. But I do think Kirk Cousins is a guy that can take you to the playoffs, but how far can he go? But yeah, going back to the quarterback talk, obviously Detroit, I really don't like. I mean, maybe you take Malik Willis just because the potential is there, and you let Jared Goff be that guy, take all the hits next year, and then you can put Malik Willis the year
And
after.
number 2?
I mean, I'm just saying, I've
No.
seen people mock him as high as 2. I think he's the first quarterback that goes just based off pure raw potential and just with how much I've heard about teams just falling in love with him. One thing I'm interested, though, about quarterbacks in general, the Tennessee Titans, Ryan Tannehill.
Wow.
Hear me out. He's 34 years old. If I was in the Titans front office, that game versus the Bengals has still a very bad taste in my mouth, which is how that ended with Tannehill. He just did not play well at all in that game. Do you put, and he's getting paid a lot of money too. Do you take a young quarterback, and again, I think Malik Willis will be gone by then. Do you take a guy like Kenny Pickett, Matt Corral, who's a bit dinged up, but there's potential, Carson Strong, huge arm, Sam Howell even maybe. Do the Titans take a quarterback? That's kind of my thought right now. I think there's potential. I think there's a possibility.
Yeah, I would not be, if I'm a Tennessee fan, I would not be opposed to taking a quarterback. First of all, I have no idea what the Ryan Tannehill market is. I'd imagine it's similar to what that Carson Wentz deal ended up being, where you're getting a third rounder or something in that neighborhood. But let me get into the meat and potatoes of my argument. I've been waiting to say this since we started the show. Stop sleeping on Matt Corral. I don't know why everyone decided that this man is not going to be a good quarterback. Like, I just don't get it. He went 10-2. He threw 4 picks all year last year playing against SEC defenses. He's got physically, he's 6'2". He can easily, he's like 210 pounds. People say he needs to add a little more weight. He can easily put on 10 to 15 pounds before next season and get into better NFL shape. People love to say that, oh, he relies too much on the RPOs. That was the system he was in, and it worked. But if you look at the numbers, or if you look at the tape, when he played outside of the RPOs, he was still a very good quarterback. I think he delivers on all levels. I think he is very possibly the most NFL-ready guy in this class. And if the Titans were to take him at number 26, or if we're being real, they can probably trade down and get some more value and grab him in the second round. I think it could be a very fruitful move for them, and it would save them some money to go after an AJ Brown extension, which I think we all agree would be very warranted for them.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. I would say that Matt Corral is probably gonna become an Atlanta Falcon. News just came out that he's gonna be visiting the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that point to that. In the second round, look, I think a lot of these QBs are gonna go in the second round. What's one of the teams that might take it? The New York Giants. I'm telling you, people are fed up with Daniel Jones. Look, the guy is like, yes, injury. You give him all the chances. Take him in the second round. Worst comes to worst, you spend a second round on a QB. Maybe later on you can try and trade him out like the Patriots did with Jimmy Garoppolo. You get like a 4th rounder or a 3rd rounder or something like that. What else do I see? I see the 49ers trading Jimmy Garoppolo at some point in this draft to a team that's in need of a QB, something like maybe the Texans, who really just need a veteran QB right now. Somebody who's not even a veteran QB, but like a starting veteran QB. Wait for next year, get Bryce Young or somebody like that. And then that's what I'm most interested to see. Where does Jimmy Garoppolo go? Because I think he does go in this draft at some point. The 49ers will trade him. I just am not sure where he goes. Of course, Deebo Samuel will have to go at some point in this draft as well. I think it's going to be the Patriots or the Jets. There's reports coming out that they both already made significant offers for him. Now, I mean, all wide receivers have been linked with the Patriots: Odell, Julio, Jones. I'm really not counting on Bill Belichick making that move. It's really bold. But yeah, no, I'd see a QB falling off really at the Texans pick. I see it really coming off around the Seahawks. The Seahawks pick at number 9. I think I see them taking a QB there.
All right, Davian, let me say I just completely zoned out. Everything you said for the last minute, you've just unleashed a monster. If you guys thought my Russell Westbrook defenses got bad, you guys have not seen anything yet. Stop the Daniel Jones slander.
He's bad. He is bad.
Okay, the wide receivers. How many touchdowns did the wide receivers catch last year? Like 4?
He has no wide receivers. I mean, these guys can't play. $50 to any listener who can get me Davian's address so I can go and set things right for Daniel Jones. I will not accept the disrespect that this man is given. He has no chance. He has no protection. He has no O-line. And if you look at the tape, right? The one game that he had all his weapons, he had Saquon, he had his wide receivers. He led an 11-point comeback to defeat a very good Saints team where he absolutely dominated one player of the week. The potential is there. Just give him a chance. Go out, draft an elite edge rusher at number 5.
How many chances do you give for a QB?
Or draft Tyler Lindenbaum, who is the highest rated guard I believe in PFF history, if I'm not mistaken, or whatever the marker is. Give this man some support, and he will not disappoint. All the numbers back him up. In 2020,
give him the support. No, I'm not saying don't give him a shot, but get a second-round QB just in case.
No, all right. The team needs to commit to him. They need to take that second rounder and give him something. Give him even an extra guy in the secondary because the team has no idea how to handle the salary cap and then they move on from half the defense.
I think at the end of the day,
it's worse than football.
I don't mean to cut you guys off and cut you guys short, but I think at the end of the day, you guys are talking a bunch of nonsense because it doesn't matter because the Giants are going to reach for some random guy that none of us mentioned, and it's just the cycle is just going to continue. You guys know it's going to happen. You don't know
how hard it was for me to throw on this Giant shirt because I'm so tired of being a fan of this team.
Get ready for Brock Purdy to go number 4 to the New York Giants. Actually, number 5 to the New York Giants. But that will be a wrap for this episode and this edition of the Benchwarmer Sports podcast. We hope you guys enjoyed this little therapy session for Giants fans. Let us know what you guys think is going to happen in the NFL draft. This will be up on Saturday-ish around.
Giants are taking a QB.
Let me just say,
just like the Packers.
Leak Willis at number 5. I will not be showing up next show. Someone will need to check in on my mental health because I will not be able to handle it.
No.
Oh, wait. I'm not saying he goes at number 5. No. And I also don't think the Panthers take anybody. No.
Look, I know the Giants. I know this is what they're going to do. They're going to do something. I know that they're not going to nail the draft. I know that they're going to do something that I'm going to want to throw a fit about, but I'm just so defeated by this team that I won't even throw a fit, and it'll just me be staring off into empty space on my desk.
They will take the punter from San Diego State because we all saw how they made that call on the 4-yard line. Maybe if they had a better punter, they would punt the ball.
I know that baller. I wouldn't even complain about that. The man is so good.
But yeah, that will do it for this edition of the Benchwarmer Sports podcast. Get ready for next week where Davian and Theodore talk about why the Giants are terrible. We will also be doing the NHL playoff extravaganza next week. I am so excited, stuff that I actually can talk about and won't get shunned for. I cannot wait for Davian and Theodore to continue their NHL knowledge. I've heard that they've been picking up some stuff. Guys, real quick before we close,
we're so good.
Who is the goalie of the New York Rangers, the starter?
Chesky, bro. Bro, the guy's a beast. Shutout after shutout.
It's going to be a great show. You guys don't want to miss it. We'll get that up
Raffi, as well. What's team of the Blackhawks in again? I'm sorry, can you remind me?
That's all for the show. I'm Raffi, joined by Davian and Theodore as always. We'll talk to you guys again next week. We can't wait. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Spotify, and follow us again at TikTok at Benchwarmer_sports. I just posted 2 hockey TikToks last night. Be sure to follow us for some more TikToks surrounding sports, some of our unfiltered takes, especially if you guys want to hear Davian and Theodore talking about the New York Giants and why they suck. But once again, for Theodore and for Davian, I'm Raffi. Thank you for watching. We'll talk to you guys again soon. Peace.
They're 7th in the
Peace.
Central, by the way.